Good morning, Neil, and good morning, everyone, and good morning, Sue. I'm super good, thank you. Actually, the truth is that very early on, I decamped from the leafy Surrey, where I felt a bit sort of on my own and vulnerable. So I'm in my flat now in London, which is just on the river. So I've got a great view of the river. I've got a terrific balcony. And I've got some nice gardens as well here to walk in, and I'm next to a park. So actually, for me, lockdown has been, I've done very well. I miss the sort of going out, and I miss visiting hospitals and all of that. But as it's gone, I've been really lucky.
So, you've spoken before at maternity and midwifery festivals. You've been involved with NHS trusts. You're very aware of the sheer scale of maternity and midwifery. Some of us were joking earlier that it probably had to be explained to some politicians that childbirth was a bit different from other operations. They couldn't quite be postponed or pushed back. And that during the first 3 months of this COVID crisis, there was likely to be up to 150,000 births in the UK and something like 600,000 over the whole year. So we could be looking at 450,000 births if we're all in various stages of distancing and lockdown for 9 months. So this is a very eclectic program. People can talk about whatever they like. And we've invited Roy to just give us a 5-minute reflection on any aspect of maternity and midwifery that really he would like to highlight and reflect on. So Roy, over to you.
Well, thank you, Neil. I mean, I think that the first thing that occurs to me is really how well midwifery has done in the midst of the corona crisis, if I can put it like that. I mean, and no one knows what's going on anywhere, really, do we, at the moment? I mean, the whole thing is just a fog, and the daily news things that we get from Number 10, they just do statistics and they just go zoom over everybody's head. And so getting a real fix on what is happening is quite difficult. I was interviewing the chief executive of the Royal Wolverhampton Trust last week, and he was telling me there about his maternity services, because I knew I'd be on here and I wanted to ask him. And he was saying he'd pretty much left the maternity services to get on with whatever it is they wanted to get on with, and they've done more home births than they would have done normally. So I think, that's interesting. I think what that says to me, we've got a group of very responsible senior clinicians who are able to get on and do their own thing, which is the hallmark, I think, of midwifery, and has been for as long as I've been involved with it. So, I mean, it'll be interesting when all this is over to tease it out and see actually how well we did do. The other issue for me is that we've been dumped in this kind of corona mess, but if we go back before the corona mess and think about where we were with midwifery then, we were still, I think, struggling, and we were still kind of arguing or debating, certainly, Better Births, Baroness Cumberledge's seminal work, where she described the gold standard for midwifery, the one woman, one midwife throughout the whole of the term, and all of the things that we wanted to do. We've not been able to do it simply because a lot of midwives have not been able to take on a 24-hour responsibility for their women. And of course, we've not had enough midwives. I mean, we seem to yo-yo up and down with the number of midwives. I think now we're about 3,000 short. As you say, whatever people have been up to in lockdown, it's highly likely that we're going to need a few more midwives come January, December, and the early part of next year. So I think the important thing for me is that we don't let the corona thing distance ourselves from the gold standard and what we were trying to achieve before the corona thing came along. And I think that's going to need a big act of leadership to take the midwives back to where they were, that we need to say, you've done a terrific job during the corona crisis. And, a lot of things have to have been compromised, and we've done things practically that perhaps we don't really want to do. And somehow or other, we've come through it. And we've got through this elegantly and well done. But let's go back to where we were trying to achieve and then think, okay, how do we get from the better births ambitions and bring them now into an uncertain future? Now, there are two things about the future that I would just like to mention, if I may. The first is we don't know where we're going to be with the money because it depends on the economy. Now, we all know the economy is shot to pieces. And how that's going to recover, I don't know. I mean, this is not the morning to get into the technical aspects of the recovery of the economy, but either we've got to borrow it from overseas or we've got to put up taxes. It looks to me like it's going to be a mix of the both. That then says to me, okay, what happens to public services? We've just gone through 10 years of austerity from 2008 after the world banking crisis. We've had pretty much flatline funding in the last 10 years. We thought we were on track to get additional funding, and certainly the government has been generous to the NHS in so far as it's funded pretty much everything it's needed for the corona crisis. But what will the government's attitude be to funding public services after the corona crisis? Do we need to prepare ourselves for another period of not austerity, then certainly not anything like the 4% per annum that we've been is our historical average. What that means for maternity services, I don't know, but I do think that midwifery leaders should be thinking about what will funding look like after when we get through all this, and that's probably going to be another, I don't know, could be 9 months. And finally, I just want to say that I've been a great proponent, Neil, as you know, for the use of technology in healthcare. Not recklessly. I think we need to look after people's data, and we're having all the palaver now about the NHS app. But fundamentally, I think that's a good thing. Data is the new future. And in addition to that, I've been really interested to see how clinicians' behavior has changed. Now, I've been trying to get clinicians to do online and video conference calling with patients for the last 30 years. And it's happened in 3 weeks because of the corona thing. So I've seen my ambitions fulfilled in 3 weeks. Now, I don't know what that's meant for midwifery, but I do know there have been some fantastic apps that have been developed. There was one that came out of Nottingham before the corona thing, and there have been several others where women have been able to engage with their midwives in a more sort of social way, in a regular, accessible way. And of course, you know, the majority of women that have babies are around 30. They will be, or younger, and they will be net savvy. They'll be able to cope with IT and what have you. And so the other question then that I think is open for midwifery leaders is the extent to which they can engage with their mothers and their women using technology, which I think is the step change. If anything good comes out of this, and God knows so much death and misery has come out of the corona crisis, but if any good can come out of this, then it must be the use of technology. So there are my three things. We mustn't forget better births and the gold standard that we were aiming for. We mustn't forget the impact on the economy and what that will mean for the whole of the service, not least midwifery. And what does technology mean for us in the future? Now that we have actually used a lot of these technologies, can we take the best of it in the future? So those are my three reflections.
Thanks for watching this video from the Maternity and Midwifery Forum. For more expert opinion and analysis, hit the button below to subscribe.